Dear content creator, have you ever felt like you're running on fumes trying to juggle your 9 to 5 and your content creator side hustle? Trust me, I've been there, done that, still doing that. And so, in this episode, we're going to be talking about how you can hopefully do both of these things without burning out. Let's dive in. What up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Dear Content Creator. Also, welcome to season 2, baby. We are back. Happy New Year. Yeah, we made it to 2025, and I am just so happy to be back on the podcast, talking back to my yapping, giving you all my insights, my thoughts, sharing my experience with you. And I am super excited for this season because I have some plans to bring on some guests, introducing you to some amazing Canadian creators that I know that I think you all should get to know about their journey, their stories, and all of that. So just giving you a little heads up of what you can look forward to for this season. But yes, y'all, it is 2025. And I don't know if it's an every year thing, but I feel like every year we say how long and dragged out January is. And trust me, January just did long for no reason. And then February came and was running away like, I don't know, like FBI was after her or something. The way she just came and was like, okay, bye. And now we're in March. So I wanted to be able to bring back the podcast in the very first quarter of the year because it's very tempting as a content creator to kind of want to get back into the swing of things, you know, coming out in the new year with all these goals that you want to do and all of these big things. But reality will always kick in. So the last time I did an episode was in December. And I was hoping that I could come back on the podcast, hopefully mid-January, but I took a look at my life situation, how everything was going just with work, headspace. I ended off 2025 a bit burnt out. I'm not going to lie to you. And so I said, you know what? Your girl needs a little break. And so here we are after this break, and I'm ready to get back into it. So hope y'all didn't miss me too much. I missed talking to y'all and all of that, but I am really excited to talk about this topic today because it is such a big reality for so many of us. Before we get into that though, I want to hear from y'all. How are you doing? I hope that the year has been treating you well so far. And I know that especially in the new year, when you're seeing everybody talking about their goals, things they have accomplished, all of this, it is super easy for you to look at yourself and start to compare, and then you start discouraging yourself before you have even started. So I want you to remember all of what we've discussed in season 1. If you need a refresher, head over to your favorite podcast platform, whether you listen to me on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music. If you watch here on YouTube, that is great too. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can always go and get a refresher from those episodes and those great reminders as well. But all this to say, y'all, I had a big reality check because I think I have had the luxury, not the ideal situation, but I have been able to experience what it's like being a content creator while working a 9 to 5, but also trying to do content creation full time. So I think I had mentioned it in one of my episodes before. If I didn't, my brain is going bad. But I think I had briefly shared how I had an experience where I got laid off. And this was a little bit after the pandemic. Really hard time. And even though for that entire year and change, I had the opportunity to, you can say, dabble into content creation full time, mentally, I just wasn't really there to give my all into content creation because your girl still had bills to pay and worry about. And so I feel like there's that, if you need to have a great mix when it comes on to juggling this thing, because when you're working a full-time job and you have it as a side hustle, it's great to have that stability of that full-time job, but then you also don't have as much time to maybe put into content creation. And then if you're doing it full-time, if you're not someone who voluntarily went into content creation full time. Maybe you were forced into it due to an unfortunate situation like getting laid off. You decide, you know what, let me try and bet on myself. If you don't have the right situation, the right circumstances, it might be very stressful and you won't be able to give your all into it. So my situation right now is that I am working a full-time job, back in working full-time, and I'm also doing content creation. And when I meet a lot of people, I think because of how I am active online, a lot of people think that I do this full time. And I wish I did, but I don't. And so I have been talking to a lot of my friends who they can relate from the perspective of they are still working a 9 to 5 while trying to juggle content creation. I do have friends who do this full time as well. And so it's always great to kind of see the different perspective. And so with a lot of us who are probably in the situation of, you know what, I'm not really able to quit my job and dive into this thing full time. I need more of a stability and comfort level to get to that point where I feel like I can do that. Some of us might have responsibilities. You might be a parent, whatever the case might be. So it's hard for us to just do that. However, just because we work a full-time job doesn't mean that we should give up on our goals from a content creator standpoint. So in this episode, what I'm hoping to dive into is how you can establish a schedule, because that's important, how you can prioritize and set realistic goals. That is something we definitely talk about. How you can leverage your 9 to 5 job for content creation. And lastly, how you can set boundaries to help you stay organized. We have a lot to talk about, so let us get right into it, y'all. First things first, establishing a content creation schedule. This is going to be the key for you to actually be able to juggle your job and doing content. There's just no way around it. We don't really have the luxury of doing things off the fly, because if you do work full time, you know that there's that pressure of showing up, performing, making sure that you're doing your job within working hours. And so it's definitely important for you to set a schedule. And I will share some of what I do to help me with this, because I have been basically doing content creation and working a 9 to 5 pretty much my entire, you could say, content creation career or journey. And apart from that 1 year and change that I had the opportunity to do it full time, it wasn't in the ideal circumstance. So I don't really count that as like me doing content full time. But anyways, first things first, y'all, you're just going to have to find pockets of time for you to make content. And I think what some of us kind of don't remember to do is making content has so many steps. Before you can pick up your camera, if you're someone who writes, before you can go ahead and completely have a blog, you have to have like an outline for what the content is going to be about. So making sure that you divide up what your pockets of time will look like and when you can do those things. So for me, because I do also have events in the evening, sometimes I do have meetings to attend and different things like that. I find that it's maybe 1 or 2 evenings on a weekday that I can find time to do some content, and my weekends. So in true 9 to 5 person lifestyle and juggling content creation life, I am currently recording this podcast on a Sunday evening before I have to go to my job the following day. And that's just how it is. With my podcast, I can mainly record at nighttime because that's when it's mostly quiet. And so that is just how it's set up for me. And I have to just make that commitment to dedicate to recording on a Sunday or Saturday evening if Saturdays work, and just make sure that I then use Monday to edit my podcast for it to get released on a Tuesday. So that's just to give you an idea of what my schedule is like. You have to find what works best for you. In between that, when it comes on to planning, before I even start to record my podcast during the week, I'm thinking about ideas, whether it's the points I'm going to talk about, the topic, segment ideas, because I do have segments in my podcast. I use like my lunch break for that. Or even if I'm just sitting down watching TV in the evening where I'm relaxing, if an idea comes to me, I usually have my phone with me. So I will open up my notepad and just jot down some ideas so that I don't forget it for when I need it. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you want to consider batch creating content. Now, this is not going to be easy for everyone to do because depending on the type of content you do, maybe what you do might be more trendy related topics or time sensitive, and so it's going to be hard for you to, for example, record 1 month's worth of content for something that hasn't happened yet, for it to be a hot topic for you to make content about. However, what you could do is make evergreen content, and that comes in so handy because it is things that you can also repurpose. I'll give you guys two perfect examples. So for this month, for Black History Month, I had a goal for content that I wanted to make to share mostly about Canadian Black history. Part of the content that I do dives into Black history as well. And so even though I had a desire to do that, my schedule got a bit more unpredictable in terms of work and other opportunities that came about in terms of brand partnerships that just required more of my attention. And so I had to put some of those ideas of what I wanted to do on the back burner. However, because I did have great evergreen content that I shared in previous years regarding Black history in Canada, I was able to then just repost them. And surprisingly, I still had new people finding my videos, sharing them, and engaging, and I got some more followers during that time. So that showed to me that, you know what, if you have evergreen content that is still significant, it's also packed with value, it still has relevance, and you don't have to be reinventing the wheel all the time. Just make high quality content that you can also repurpose if it's evergreen. The second thing is that if you can do a signature series, these are one of the best things that you can also batch create because it is a series. You are able to do maybe a couple of episodes in one setting, and then at another time you can do another set of episodes. So for example, if you are someone who is into skincare and you want to rate, I don't know, maybe sunscreens, you could probably do in one sitting, you rate 3 different sunscreens, so you probably have on the same outfit. Maybe another time you record again for another 3. When you are deciding to post those videos though, you can then alternate between the outfits that you wore depending on when you batch create. Or even when you batch create, y'all, you can just change your outfit and it makes it look like you recorded it on a different day. So just get creative in that kind of way. I know for me, I had to get super creative in that because this year I wasn't able to do features for Black History Month in the way I wanted to do in highlighting some Black owned restaurants. And so instead I said, you know what? I don't have the time. I don't drive. Getting around the city, especially Toronto, it can be so time consuming. I just realistically don't have the time. However, I think I can still highlight products and, beverages that are in the food space that celebrates Black entrepreneurs as well. So that's what I did. I started a series which was highlighting Black owned food and beverage products for Canadian businesses. I've been having so much fun with it, and in the process, I am allowing people to learn more about different products that are out there. We can no longer say we don't have choices when it comes on to products that we can support. It's just a matter of them getting the brand awareness that they need, and that was my way of bringing awareness to some of those small Black-owned businesses in Canada. So I love batch creating content whenever I can because it just helps to keep me organized. It helps me to see that I have a goal that I'm going towards. And I love using tools such as Notion because that helps to keep my personal organization intact. That brings us to our segment, Things I Am Loving Right Now. So I'm sure that many of you have heard about Notion before. It is like an all-in-one platform to help you keep yourself organized and productive, basically. So it has calendars, it has areas for you to keep notes, documents, links, all of the things. I personally love to use it for my podcast because it allows me to have a workspace where I can organize myself according to a content calendar. I also have a space where I put my podcast episode ideas. And once I have my outline put together, I have an area where I have that as well, which has my finalized outline that I will use to help guide me and keep me on track so I'm not rambling too much when I have my podcast episodes. I will ramble sometime, but I saw it go. It's part of the game. So I absolutely love using Notion because not only does it help to keep me organized, but it has a free and paid option. And if you're someone like me that is pretty much doing everything on your own, it is the perfect place to help to keep yourself on track, not just with notes, but also with calendars and just literally all the things that you need. So let me know what are some of your favorite tools to use to keep yourself productive and to keep yourself on track. Would love to hear it. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment. If you are listening to this on Spotify, you actually can participate in the question of the day. And so let me know your answer, to this question of what tool do you use to help to keep you on track when it comes on to putting together a content schedule. Now, segueing into prioritizing your task and having realistic goals. This is very important, especially because not only do you want to prioritize what you're doing in your content creation side hustle, but you also have a 9 to 5 that might have to take a lot of priority, especially if you have specific working hours. So if you're someone who's working 9 to 5, your 9 to 5 time is when you have to focus on getting your job done, being available. Don't be doing things on company time that can get you in trouble. And so that is one thing that I would say to always keep in mind, that your job might not have the same luxury or flexibility as someone else's. So for me, for example, I have a job that I am remote. And so with my hours being 9 to 5, it still allows me to have some flexibility that in between that, I still have time that I can write a script, write down ideas. And sometimes because I do work from home, I am able to then quickly record a talking head video or one that requires just trending audio with me doing a dance or something, whatever. Yes, I'm still one of them people that from time to time will do a dance here and there because I just love to dance. Don't judge me. But when it comes on to setting realistic goals, because this is something that I think everybody needs to hear, no matter how far you are in your content creation goal, I think at some point we still compare ourselves to the next person who we look up to, the next person who we see as bigger than us. And the term keeping up with the Joneses, it doesn't just apply to keeping up in terms of wealth and image and all of that. I think that it absolutely still can apply in situations like looking at what other people are doing and you're kind of pushing yourself to compete in the same way. So because you see someone post 7 times a week, you're now pushing yourself to post 7 times a week without knowing what their situation is like. I'm telling y'all, the minute you focus on assessing and being self-aware of your situation and you free yourself from looking at what other people are doing with their life, with their time, etc., it is so freeing. It will give you the opportunity to really step into your full potential to do what is within your control versus you doing something and it's just making you miserable because you're not following your plan, but you're copying someone else's plan. You get my drift? Me not try preach today, no, but if me need to preach, can the church say amen? All right, amen. It's a Sunday I'm recording this, all right? I tell y'all, I record my podcast on a Sunday, so I'm feeling a bit preachy today. But yes, y'all, focus on your schedule, what you're able to do. So as someone who I know that I do everything on my own, I had to be realistic in terms of recording a podcast. I would have loved to be able to do 4 episodes in one sitting, but I have noticed that it just takes me a bit more time. I'm still getting used to even doing podcasting because it's very different from the other type of content that I do. And so I want to take time in not rushing it for the sake of saying, oh, I recorded 4 podcast episodes. Who am I trying to impress? Really and truly, what's the point of rushing the process if it's just going to come out to be garbage? Sometimes quality is more important than quantity. And so for me, I have to just recognize my own life circumstances, what I had going on and what I would be able to do. And it brings me back to that example that I told y'all what I did specifically for Black History Month. As much as I would love to be able to go out and go to a bunch of different restaurants and highlight Black-owned restaurants for that month and really give them the platform that they truly look forward to, specifically in the month of February, because that's when the algorithm seems to care about our restaurants only. I did what was within my power. I decided to pivot in what I would feature, which was still within the niche that I do content about, food, just in a different way. A lot of us love food, but you might need condiments that can help complement the foods that you're making. There are Black-owned products out there that you can implement in your kitchen, and I use my platform to start sharing some of those. So that was just something that I had to recognize, and I think if you recognize that for yourself, you will realize how freeing it is for you as well. The next thing is that when it comes on to forcing yourself to be on every single platform one time, I'm telling you, you're going to make the process miserable for you. Don't do that. If you can definitely do that, be on multiple platforms at once. But if you're someone who's just starting out, I would recommend give yourself at least a couple months to start off getting comfortable making content on a platform. That way, if you are moving on to another one, you have that discipline in putting out content. Because the minute you try to be everywhere at the same time and it's not working out, you're not being consistent, I know from personal experience, it's just not going to be a fun experience, and you're going to give up quicker than you wanted to. So that's my that's my 2 cents when it comes on to that. I'm saying this because I want you to remember that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And the easiest way for you to have burnout, especially if you're juggling a 9 to 5, is for you to move as if you are a machine. You're not a machine. You're a human being. Take care of yourself accordingly. And what I will wrap up this particular segment with is I will just give an example of a creator that a lot of people look up to because of their drive for making content and putting out content. And they just do it at a level that they have gained the name Mr. Beast, right? He is known to be one of the highest paying, biggest YouTubers out there. And I have been watching a couple of episodes, podcast episodes and interviews with him just to learn more about his process, the behind the scenes, different things like that he does. And I remember there was an episode, I think it was on the Colin and Samir podcast, and he basically admitted to the fact that, he doesn't really have a social life when he is really grinding and hustling. A lot of us try to copy other people's hustle without actually knowing the sacrifices they are putting in, and you don't even recognize for yourself if that's something you would like to sacrifice. Are you someone who wants to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning? I know I'm not, so I'm not even going to attempt to be that person because that's just not me, right? I am self-aware of my situation. I know that I need a social life. So there are certain things that I'm just not going to be willing to sacrifice because they are part of my well-being that allows me to still show up, to love the content that I do love to make and put out there. So for some people, they can probably do it. I am just self-aware enough to know that that's just not my ministry. And so he has talked about the fact that, there are times when his mental health has been affected, and also doesn't recommend that a lot of people follow the methods of how he does things because it's not healthy. He has said this himself. So, I mean, it's good to actually hear the behind the scenes from people that a lot of us probably look up to in some kind of way in terms of like the drive that they have and how they put out content so frequently and high quality production and all of that. But when you also get to learn the madness behind their formula, maybe it will allow you to take a step back and think, maybe that's not for me. Let me do what I know I will actually be able to do and what is within my bandwidth. That's the word of the day, bandwidth. Moving on to point number 3. Leveraging your 9 to 5 for your content creation. Y'all, this is so underrated. You know what is the problem? Everyone has been shitting on 9 to 5 lately. That what some of you don't realize is that a lot of the people who are hyping up the entrepreneur life, the hustle culture life, They were once in corporate. They have gotten their skills and everything that they need from their corporate experience that has allowed them to then step into that role of being an entrepreneur. They are using the skills that they learned in corporate to help them build up businesses that a lot of them have that corporate experience that is allowing them to, for some of us, it seems like they're growing overnight kind of a deal, but it's just the fact that a lot of people have skills that we just might not be aware of, or that we ourselves might not have because we did not have the same experiences that they did. So I can't compare myself to someone who had years of experience working for, I don't know, the biggest marketing agency ever in the world and see them take on their own personal branding and make their way into entrepreneurship, and then look at them and compare myself like I'm not good enough. No, I can't do that. I have to be self-aware of what my experience is like. And a lot of you are listening to people telling you that a 9 to 5 is not the way. And what you're not hearing is that a lot of people actually benefited a lot from their 9 to 5. For them to be able to be that successful person that they are today, they were able to get the necessary mentorship through their 9 to 5. They were able to be in rooms networking with people that they would probably not meet on their own through their 9 to 5. They have that thought leadership or bragging rights that they can say, I worked with this company, that company, that company, because of the experience they had through their 9 to 5. So do not listen to all those people trying to tell you that a 9 to 5 is a bad thing. 9 to 5s are not bad. It's just that, just like everything else, you don't want to just focus on relying on a 9 to 5, which is why probably a lot of you can relate to me right now. If you have a 9 to 5 and you're doing content creation, it's because you want to have multiple streams of income. I don't want what happened to me when I got laid off that like couple years ago to happen to me again, where I felt so hopeless and I was panicking and I was in a state of such depression that it took me so long to pull myself out of there, because at the time the 9 to 5 was all I relied on. I can say if something unfortunate was to happen now, I would be able to handle it very differently. Very, very differently. Because I have certain things in place now that I just didn't have back then. But anyways, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but you can literally leverage your 9 to 5 in so many ways. I'm going to give you examples. A lot of people have been able to use their experience in their 9 to 5 in their content creation journey to grow their personal brand. If you are looking on platforms like TikTok and Instagram right now, even LinkedIn, many people have been growing their personal brand because they know that regardless of what company you work at, it is important for you to have a personal brand, that if that opportunity should disappear today and you're not working for that company anymore, at least you have built up a name for yourself that anywhere else would be lucky to have you. Or if you want to do your own thing, you have built up that credibility already. But you got that experience through what? The 9 to 5. All right. Yes. You're following me? All right. Follow me here, people. So a lot of people have been able to do that. I would say that in my personal experience, one of the ways I've been able to leverage my 9 to 5 for content creation is the access to information that I get. So in my 9 to 5, because I work with a lot of marketing agencies in my full-time job, I am able to learn about different softwares that are out there, the ways they can be used. And then I can then look at my content creation journey and see what are the tools that I currently use that could be replaced with some of these things that I'm learning about through my 9 to 5 job. How can I optimize and make my content creation journey more efficient? I can see digital marketing agencies being able to make content at such a faster phase, like a faster scale, I should say. How can I do that as well, knowing the information I know in terms of the tools that are accessible out there? Because the reality is, unless you work in certain environments, you just won't be privy to certain information. The second thing I would say is allow yourself to ask for resources to help you build your career while you're there. A lot of companies might have funding that can help you get a degree or a certification that can help you step up, get to the next level. It could be a conference that they can pay for you to attend. I can give you a perfect example for myself. I'm a social media geek. Anything related to social media, I love it. I'm interested. I want to know about it. There is this big conference that happens in the States every year. And for the past 3 years, I've always wanted to go. This year, I wanted to go, but I said, it's not going to work out. But I said I could go virtually, though, and still get the same access to information as everyone who's probably going in person. The only thing I wouldn't be getting is probably just meeting people to talk one-on-one. That kind of access I wouldn't have. But the knowledge that everyone else is getting, the talks, the info, all of that, I would have access to that if I go virtually. So I talked to my manager to see if I would be able to get it covered by my company, which they agreed to do. And I'm grateful for that, because now that information, not only can I use it in the company that I'm at with the agencies I work for, but I can also apply that to my content creation, which happens to be on digital marketing platforms. You see where I'm going with this, y'all? Like, don't have them people out here telling y'all to quit your jobs without any good reason now, okay? And go chase this dream of being an entrepreneur that they don't really tell you is not the glam and glitter that they portray to you. Lastly, a lot of you probably have flexible jobs. Maybe you have a job that's remote. And with that remote work life, you are allowed to have more freedom to the time that you have and how you can use your time. You're not someone who might have to go into the office where between 9 to 5, you're just stuck in a cubicle or at a desk and people watching your every move or whatever the case might be. You might be in an environment that you're remote, and once you get your work done, that's all your company cares about. And anything that you do in between that is your own business. Once it's not jeopardizing the productivity of the work that you're doing for your company and your 9 to 5, you're good. That's all I'm going to say on that topic. All right. Moving on. Setting boundaries. So this was the last point that we will wrap up this episode with. It can be very tricky if you work at a company that has certain policies, especially when it comes on to social media policies and the company. So the only advice I can really give y'all there is just be aware of your social media, your workplace's social media policies, what's allowed, what's not allowed, so that it ensures that whatever you're doing online doesn't affect your bag at your 9 to 5. There have been people who have been in situations that, due to their online presence and what they have put out on their online presence, whether it has to do with sharing company secrets or just, violating certain company policies, that has jeopardized their 9 to 5. And whereas for some people that hasn't been an issue for them getting back on their feet again, not everyone has that luxury. So tread accordingly is what I would say. Don't allow what you're doing in your side hustle to affect what you're doing in your 9 to 5. You want to have that healthy boundary for sure. Stay professional. And just be aware of what you can and can't do. It's very easy to want to do a lot of things to go viral quickly, not realizing what the consequences of those actions might be. So take my 2 cents with a grain of salt, if you will, and just marinate on that last point for a bit. All right, y'all, I have a new segment that I would like to introduce called the Creator's Mailbox. And this is where we dive into some of your questions. So let's dive in and see what is on your mind for this week. So this first question here, how do you know when it's time to transition from your 9 to 5 to full-time content creation? Very great question. Now, If your content, like what you're making from your content in terms of income, is matching your salary or exceeding it, usually that is a sign for you to know that I can actually make money doing this content creation thing like full time. Ensure, however, that even if that's the case, you want to have savings. So even though I've not done this myself just yet, I know that one of the reasons I haven't is because I am not yet at a point where what I'm making content is making more than my current salary. That's just not the case for me right now. If I do reach to that point, amazing, I will do that. But that is one thing that I know and that I've heard from other creators who have transitioned. They made the leap when they realized, you know what, I'm making about the same amount of money per month as my full-time job. So I think it's time for me to take a leap of faith and do that. But also make sure that you have savings. So it's good to have a leap of faith, but make sure you have savings. I know that people usually say like have at least 6 months salary, but I think recently the advice has been have at least a year's worth, because with this economy and how things have been going, it's getting harder and harder to find opportunities as quickly as possible. But if you're someone who is great at like networking and all of that, that might not be your concern. So this next one is actually something I've heard from other content creations who have decided to go into content creation full time. They mentioned that when they realized they had to start turning down opportunities because of their 9 to 5 was when they knew, okay, it was time for them to take a leap of faith and do this full time. Because think of it this way. If a brand is asking you to do a campaign and there's a certain timeline, but the timeline they need you to do it by, you can't because you have to work. Maybe weekends are the only free time you have to do anything content related, but it doesn't work for the brand because of their tight timeline with the campaign. That affects the campaign or the content creation bag. You know what I mean? So for some people, if they realize that, you know, they're turning down a lot of opportunities because of that, they will make that decision to, you know, just get rid of the 9 to 5 because it's just, for them, it's just not fulfilling what they need anymore, I guess you could say. And lastly, if you feel like you're ready to take that leap, who am I to tell you when to do that? If you mentally feel like you're ready to take that leap of faith, by all means, go ahead. It's all about your personal journey. You are the one who knows yourself best. If you feel ready, take that leap and go for it. I think that's the only question we will answer in this segment, just because I think this episode was already long enough. So we will have some of these questions that can be answered in later episodes. But if you have a question that you would like to have me answer on this podcast, maybe it's an advice you need, send me an email to theircontentcreator@gmail.com. That's theircontentcreator@gmail.com. All right, so we are not going to be doing a Dear Future Me segment for this episode. I'm going to be wrapping up with final thoughts. Creating content while working a 9 to 5, it's not easy. There is so much that we have to juggle. However, with a little planning or with a lot of planning, being realistic about your goals and your expectations for yourself, using tools that can help keep you on track and productive, and also leveraging the resources that you have available to you, it is extremely possible. Just remember that you don't have to do everything at once. Take it one step at a time, man, and everything will be all right. As always, thank you all for listening. If you haven't yet subscribed, all right, I'm gonna need y'all to subscribe. Subscribe, y'all. Like the podcast. If you have not left me a review yet, people, go over to Spotify, go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. And if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, I should say, leave a comment and answer this question. How do you juggle your job, your 9 to 5, and content creation? Let us have a discussion about it here on YouTube and over on Spotify. I will add this question on Spotify as well. All right, y'all. Until next time, see y'all in another episode. Bye.